much for that. Well, the news that level 4 restrictions are to be imposed on large parts of Scotland will have come as a blow to many non-essential businesses who will be forced to close once again. We're joined by Stuart Patrick from Glasgow Chamber of Commerce. Stuart, many businesses will now have to close. How big of an impact is this going to have?
Well, obviously it's going to affect pretty much the whole of the consumption economy, all the retail, hospitality, personal services business, a lot of transport businesses as well. We estimate in Glasgow that around about 80,000 jobs will be put back into suspension in the city alone. It may be as much as 170,000 jobs across the whole city region. But it's particularly the small businesses in retail, in hospitality, for whom Christmas is a vital part of their whole trading year and who need that trade in Christmas to be able to survive the winter. Those are the ones that we're particularly worried about.
And we've heard in the past calls for businesses to be consulted by the government on these changes. What level of consultation was there ahead of this decision for level 4 restrictions?
Well, it's relatively light. I mean, there is some consultation with the national bodies, no consultation with us directly in Glasgow. But what we are concerned about in that regard is the extent to which the economic impact is actually taken into account. We don't see much in the way of data on job losses, on business sustainability, or indeed, for that matter, on the evidence around transmission in workplaces to justify the level of intervention that is coming at level 4.
But part of this is a balance that the government is trying to strike to keep schools open, for example, and there is support in place for businesses. We have the furlough scheme, we have grant support. What more would you want to see the government do in that area?
Well, I think this is one of the issues that I think increasingly becomes frustrating for businesses, because the job retention scheme, of course, is very welcome. It doesn't actually help to cover all of the employment costs. We still have to pay employers' national insurance contributions and staff pensions. And that's really tricky if you've got absolutely no cash coming in. There are small cash grants that maybe amount to about £3,000 a month if you're depending on the size of your business. But if you have a monthly rent to pay, you have insurances to pay, you've got bank loans to repay at some stage, you've got bank interest to pay, you have equipment leases and so forth, it simply doesn't add up to the amount of overhead outgoings that you have. So inevitably, as we're seeing in the evidence, particularly small companies are building up unsustainable loans and are either running out of cash or simply won't be able to repay the loans when the time comes for that.
So if that is the case, are we looking at businesses failing, just not being able to reopen if they are closed for this 3-week period? And how widespread do you think that failure of businesses could be?
Well, it was interesting today, PwC came out with their report on the impact of the first lockdown on high streets and towns and cities across the UK. And they're reporting that 1 out of 5 stores did not reopen after that first lockdown. Of course, we're doing a lockdown right at the peak point. We're taking this lockdown right into the heart of December. So unfortunately, I rather suspect the figures will be more severe after the second lockdown than they will have been after the first.
Do you think then it might have been better had the government done this at an earlier point? Should they have done it a week or two earlier to allow for that December trade to take place for longer?
I think we're getting to the point now where disillusionment is setting in between business and government in Scotland. Actually, the details around 1 week or the next week is probably not the issue. The issue is that businesses invested heavily in making their premises safe. They invested in PPE, they invested in the test and protect system, and they expected that the other side of that bargain would be that the government would deliver an effective test and protect system. And that is now what businesses are looking for. They're looking for that testing regime to be improved. And it was one good thing that the First Minister said yesterday, was the intention to look at mass testing, to try mass testing in the way that is being tried in Liverpool and in other sites around the rest of the UK. That has to be a better solution than whether we debate around the specifics of one lockdown after another.
OK, and Stuart, just very quickly, if I can ask you this very briefly, how confident are you that the restrictions will end on December 11th, as the government has said?
Well, we're absolutely desperate that they do. I have to be honest and say a degree of scepticism has crept in, and we are getting rather used to those last-minute adjustments and decisions being made with 48 hours notice and businesses being asked to switch on and off like light bulbs. And so there is a degree of scepticism about this, but we're absolutely desperate that we do reopen on the 11th.
OK, Stuart Patrick, thank you very much indeed.